It's Monday, and that means we're back with another episode of Beyond the Ballot. Today I'm joined by Sal Mayweather, heavy hitter. Got some great projects going on. It's a great episode. You guys are going to love it. Speaking of episodes which you may or may not have loved, getting a little feedback for that last episode with the debate. I think most people picked Jeremy as the winner, and even more people hated the debate. So it's, that generated a lot more attention than I thought it would. If you want to follow up on that and see some more things said about that, make sure to go find Jeremy on Facebook and Twitter. He's been talking about it. Good stuff. I appreciate everybody interacting with that. Let me know if you don't want to see any more debates or different debates or more debates. Yeah, let me know. Before we jump in to the show, I got to thank my Beyond the Ballot Patreon super supporters, Maxwell, Dave, Dennis, and Chuck. You guys are awesome. The show is also produced by Dave, Dennis, and Chuck, as well as myself, and I really appreciate it. Moving onward, upward, bigger and better things. All right, without further ado, enjoy the show. Beyond the Ballot is officially sponsored by Project Sparta. Now's the time to get healthy and in shape. Greg Papanicholas is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to projectspartacoaching.com and learn more about Greg's work and get started on your path to health. In this crazy world we're living in, our health is more important than ever. Get up, start learning, communicating, and training. One of the most important and often neglected things in life is your physical health. Get to projectspartacoaching.com now and get after it. Shout out to Voluntary Apothecary. Voluntary Apothecary is here to fulfill all of your beard care needs. They carry beard oil, mustache wax, beard butter, and more. I only use their beard care products, and I love them. You can check out their amazing products at voluntарyapothecary.com, and listeners of the show can take 10% off your order with code BEYOND at checkout.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?
All right, we're back again for another episode of Beyond the Ballot, and I'm joined today, finally, by Sal Mayweather. I finally extended an invite to come on the show. I'm happy to have you on, man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Heck yeah, I'm excited. Before we get started, tell people where they can find you, what you do, your projects, all that stuff.
Yeah. So you can. I have a company called Agoristics, and our main project right now is 3D Printer Go Burr, BRRR.com, 3 R's, where we sell 3D printers and 3D printing supplies for cryptocurrency. I also publish the New Libertarian blog at newlibertarian.io. I host the Agora podcast. I co-host Unloose, the Goose podcast. And I'm on all of your normal social media platforms. Usually it's just Sal Mayweather or at Sally Mayweather. You can find me. So
sick. Yeah, that's a great name for the website too. I love the meme culture. I love the Printer Go Burr memes as well. What are you printing then with that? What exactly are you printing? Tell me about that.
Well, you can print anything you like. I of course don't print guns. I don't know anything about that. I don't recommend anybody do anything illegal. I don't know the first thing about that. So I usually just make like toys and trinkets and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, now is there stuff with crypto? Like, what are you printing for crypto?
Oh, well, I'm selling 3D printers for cryptocurrency.
Okay.
So you could buy you could buy printers and printing supplies from me using cryptocurrency. And the reason why I started this project was because I realized that anybody who purchased a 3D printer had to do so using a KYC payment platform, right? Like every printer purchased off of Amazon or directly from some 3D printing company was using like Visa or PayPal or a bank or something like that. So there was like this massive paper trail connecting the individual back to the printer. And I thought, well, that's probably not a great idea for the counter economy. We can probably improve that model a little bit. And, obviously I love cryptocurrency. So I said, I'll accept that in exchange for 3D printers. And I put together a little e-com shop, and it's worked out pretty well so far. So
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. And hopefully you're getting some really good business with this latest run, huh? It's been pretty impressive.
yeah, no doubt. I think I think ever since like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sort of got into, or they will be getting into power, it sort of lit a fire underneath everybody's ass. I don't know if I can curse on the show, but
Absolutely.
I think everybody feels like the inevitability of the need for a 3D printer, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course they would want a paper trail just like they want for anything else. And you could just see it in everything. Like they want to do the decriminalization for cannabis everywhere, but there's going to be paper trails with that and more entanglement with gun ownership and things like that. It's just nonsense. So crypto's the way to go for sure. And speaking of crypto, I wanted to ask about crypto anarchy, because I can use a computer, obviously. I can use it as the tool that it's designed for, but I'm not big into the whole crypto anarchy side of things. So if you could explain to the listeners pretty much what that is, how to interact with it, that'd be great.
So crypto anarchy is really just the use of cryptography to subvert or undermine the state. Some people have more strict interpretations of it than others. I sort of have just a general kind of take on it. I consider crypto anarchy any sort of use of cryptography whatsoever, or code. So obviously that includes things like blockchain or Tor, encrypted messaging apps like Signal or Proton Mail, any sort of thing like that sort of uses cryptography to increase the amount of liberty for the individual. That is crypto anarchy to me. I have seen some crypto anarchists say that things like Bitcoin, that's not crypto anarchy, and 3D printers, they have nothing to do with crypto anarchy. But I disagree with that, because I think obviously Bitcoin uses cryptography, right? So I think that's crypto anarchy. I don't, Monero is of course a much, safer coin to use, but Bitcoin nonetheless still uses cryptography. So I consider it to be crypto anarchy. And 3D printers, what a great example of crypto anarchy, because now you've essentially taken a gun and transformed it into a code, which now you've brought it into the realm of speech. And it's very difficult to regulate speech. So that in and of itself, I think, is a huge victory for crypto anarchy. So it's really just the use of cryptography, but it has many applications.
Yeah. Now, and I get the Bitcoin argument, because you want the privacy coins more often than not, depending on what you're doing with it, and to avoid capital gains tax that you have to pay for a lot of stuff. Is that pretty much the main beef with people who say that, Bitcoin or any of the other coins that aren't privacy coins, it's not, it doesn't fall into that realm?
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of these, like, more like the purists in the crypto anarchist community are much more like gung-ho about like Monero or Pirate Chain. Zcash, a lot of people still like Zcash. I'm not a fan, because I think it was just hacked recently. Dash is sort of really not really a privacy coin. It's just sort of has a built-in coin mixer, which of course has its own value, but yeah, they sort of have a much more strict interpretation of it than I do.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a lot of people talking some trash about XRP, I think, lately. Just getting real mad at people profiting off XRP. And I don't exactly know why that is. I don't look into that too far. I guess it has something to do with who's, regulating it, or what's going on with that.
Yeah, Ripple is like I'm not an expert on Ripple, but I know it's like a very centralized coin. They're very government friendly. They're trying to be, like, from what I understand, they're trying to be the blockchain that USD coin goes on, stuff like that. So they're very buddy with some of our enemies in the counter economy. So
that makes sense. You mentioned stuff like Signal and the encrypted chats and all that stuff. I've used pretty much all of them at one point or another, and it seems like every once in a while something comes out where they've allowed access to one government or another to take people down. I think one of the last ones I heard was Telegram. I can't remember if it was Signal or Proton Mail, but mostly with stuff in the Middle East, like Syria and stuff like that, they've allowed different states to match people's identities to their messages and what you have to, the information you have to give when you sign up for these. And is Signal, is that like your top one? Is that what you mentioned, or which ones do you think are good?
Yeah, well, you can always use Telegram, but if you use Telegram, what you want to make sure you're using the secret chat feature, because what you're really looking for is the end-to-end encryption. That's the strongest form of encryption right now. So Telegram, the normal default chats won't use end-to-end encryption, but the secret chats will. Signal, I like a little bit better because all chats use end-to-end encryption by default. With like Proton Mail, it's like any Proton Mail message to another Proton Mail account from one address to another at Proton Mail, those messages are encrypted. So that's a secure form of communication. Even an iMessage, like if you have an iPhone and I have an iPhone and we start texting, those messages use end-to-end encryption. I wouldn't be surprised if the state has figured out an end run around it. I remember that case with like the San Bernardino terrorist. Mm-hmm. Where they couldn't get into the iPhone, and there was like a big problem with it. And I remember John McAfee said, "Well, I'll break into it." You know what I mean? Because the state was pressuring Apple to give them the keys to their, the backdoor entrance. And eventually, they stopped asking the FBI. Right? All of a sudden, it just stopped becoming a thing, and that sort of made me think like, "Hey, they must have some sort of key already if they stopped asking for one." So who knows? As of now, that's the best information I have, is that people should be using Signal, though.
Yeah, fucking John McAfee, always up to. Why would he offer to do that? And also, aren't we supposed to be getting a video of him eating his own dick? Was that supposed to happen by the end of this year?
Yeah, what was it, like 50,000 or something, or 100,000 or a million? I forget. Yeah, he had some crazy number where he was going to suck his own dick on YouTube or something.
Yeah, if Bitcoin hit 100,000, he's supposed to eat his own dick on live video or something like that. But I don't know. He could probably fucking John McAfee. Yeah, we could go down a rabbit hole with that one. But so when did you get interested in all this stuff? Like when did you start messing around with crypto anarchy in general, not just like the blockchain as far as coins and whatnot?
Right. So it was probably like, for me, like a big moment for me was going to PorcFest about like 5 or 6 years ago. That really sort of like changed the way that I sort of look at the community, because like really I learned, rather than how to like just think like an anarchist, now I learned how to like act like one. And that's really where I saw for the first time, like there was like vending machines where you could buy like acid out of like using Bitcoin, and like birth control and ammo. And like, I was like, this is freaking awesome. You know what I mean? So I really sort of just dove headfirst into all of it. And I went home and I just completely just went all in on crypto. I got myself a 3D printer and I just like dove headfirst into the Agorist lifestyle. And then like, I guess just, I don't really know how I sort of got into or became aware of the crypto anarchist communities. Probably honestly from reading Timothy May's manifesto. And that really was sort of pretty influential on me. Because that is, if anybody hasn't read the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto, they should. Also, the Cypherpunk Manifesto is really good. Both of those things really sort of, after I was already in a Rothbardian, and then I was an Agorist, and then I came across these documents, these like manifestos, and I was like, wow, this sort of really ties together Konkin's theory. I also remember reading Konkin. He's an interview he gave a long time ago, like a really obscure interview where they asked him about this, and he's like, all of this stuff is going to be like an excellent tool for us, but like no one tool alone will suffice to bring about the counter economy. We have to put all of these tools together. And that's what I sort of like about crypto anarchy. It uses like 3D printers and Bitcoin and Monero and Tor and messaging apps. So it's sort of like a really wide ranging application for agorists.
Yeah. I'm always surprised by agorists who are resistant to crypto anarchy, cryptocurrencies, and that kind of stuff. Because Konkin left, well, first of all, he was a sci-fi nerd. He loved thinking about the future. He loved thinking about science and all that stuff. And he left it open in the New Libertarian Manifesto to change things that needed to be changed as you went along. I don't really understand the resistance or why you wouldn't want every tool at your disposal. Like, what have people told you as far as their dislike for crypto anarchy, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think Konkin even actually predicted the rise of cryptocurrency. I forget the exact quote, but I think he said something about like we can expect like an electronic cash to like, because of the internet that should bring about more freedom and stuff like that. So he really did anticipate what was coming. Sort of foresaw it almost. But no, I agree with you. I think like the whole like dichotomy and like, what I think honestly a lot of it comes down to is like there sort of seems to be a split in the Agorist community, right? Like there's like the homesteading, grow your own food community, and then there's like the Bitcoin, like crypto anarchist influenced wing of the Agorist movement. And I think the best Agorists are the ones who are able to combine both like aspects of both of those lifestyles until that's where like the true power of counter economics comes in, when you can put all of that together. I think a good example of that is like Shane Radliff,
Yes,
who does a really great job sort of combining like the homesteading and the crypto anarchist aspects of agorism and like using that to, increase liberty and stuff.
yeah, absolutely. That's the first name that popped in my head as well. That dude, he's got some crazy shit going on, like talking about how you can transfer crypto via radio waves should the grid go down, should we lose internet and shit like that. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man, you're way far into this. But no, yeah, Shane's a great guy, and if anybody doesn't know Shane, check out the Vonu podcast and all his projects. They're fucking awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because that would be the ideal, is using all this stuff. And I always come down to the question, like I see the split between rural and urban areas very profoundly through just about everything in the U.S. especially, and other places right now. But when I am trying to explain how we could have a stateless society to somebody who hasn't looked into all this stuff, then it always comes down to, well, what about the cities? Because like you said, I'm more on the homesteading side of it. I live out in the sticks with a garden and all that stuff. I like being away from the cities, and the cities seem a little harder to manage, but it seems like crypto anarchy and that kind of thing is perfect for those areas.
Yeah, no doubt it is. And, like the proof is in the pudding. Like in New York City, we had like the blockchain center, and like there was a meetup every week for like, whatever, every cryptocurrency, there's a meetup in Manhattan weekly, or at least there was before the shutdowns. Miami has like the Bitcoin center as well. So you're right. I think like urban areas there's more laws in urban areas, so there's a lot more counter economic activity, even if the people don't really know what they're up to. Like when I lived in Jersey, I used to say like everybody in Newark is an agorist, but nobody knows it because everybody's selling Lucy's on the corner, or they're selling weed, or there's more guns in Newark than the entire state of Texas, but there's not one gun license. Yeah. But nobody's ever heard of Sam Konkin or the philosophy of agorism, obviously, so that's okay. Honestly, I don't even care if they're doing it on purpose or not, because they're still having that counter economic effect. But, I think all forms of counter economics are valid, honestly. People who want to homestead and grow their own food and, have chickens and stuff like that, that's great. That's awesome. If you can sell raw milk and sell raw eggs, and you know what I mean? And that's wonderful. We need people to disintermediate the FDA and the FEC. So it really comes in all across the board.
Yeah, and it's only helpful to get into this stuff right now or anytime, but with the uncertainties we're looking at right now, with possible like doom and gloom, actual civil war, maybe balkanization, splitting up, things like that. And if the grid, the infrastructure fails and you're prepared with this kind of thing, you're going to be good to go. And I think there's more people, like you said, who don't know they're agorists, who are acting in that way, who will be more prepared as well. So for anybody, even if you don't want to be a full-fledged agorist, just dip your toes into those gray and black markets, and it's part of being a prepper, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that. I would even I don't know. I would even say especially now, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, because, the state's getting ready to roll out mandatory vaccines, and, all sorts of draconian Orwellian nonsense is happening, like it's never before happened in American history. So if there's ever a time to like unite under the banner of the black and gray, like now is it. We need to like, I really think that we libertarians and the whole freedom community, I don't care what you call yourself, everyone needs to sort of come to the realization that the only effective tool we have is counter economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Voting, secession, boogaloos, all that, it's all bullshit, right? None of it works. None of it has ever worked. The idea of using politics to increase a state of liberty is self-defeating and contradictory. So the quicker everyone realizes that counter economics is the one and only true path to freedom, the better off we'll all be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm mostly with you there because I do agree that it is the only one true path to freedom. But I think, the Boogaloo lifestyle, not necessarily what the Boogaloo Boys, I guess, in the mainstream media are portrayed to want. Like that's bullshit. But I love the philosophy of we just want to be left alone and arm yourself to the fucking teeth. I think that goes hand in hand because, self-defense, and you probably will need to defend yourself should the state ever come after you for your agorist actions.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. I agree with that 100%. My only like point of contention with the whole idea of like a boogaloo is that, if 100 of us tried to go take like a military base and have our own little boogaloo, we would just be 100 dead people at the end of it, right? I think a much more effective strategy is counter economics. I'm not saying that I do believe that a violent confrontation between the Agora and the state is inevitable. I think that's the way Sam Conkin describes like the final phase 4 of agorism in the New Libertarian Manifesto. And we're also not pacifists. I don't believe in pacifism either. But I do think that counter economics is much more effective than taking the state head on at this point in our movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way I look at it as well. That was my, passion with the Boogaloo movement is exactly what you said. And the way I've described it is how, I guess, Conkin, it's his reverse kind of time travel from the free market back towards the state and seeing the pockets of statism grow as you're going down that reverse timeline. But yeah, if the snake or whatever beast it is that you're fighting, it's going to be thrashing around in its death throes at some point, and you're going to have to defend yourself. But the idea that there's going to be some fucking revolution with a bunch of guys wearing, hula shirts, Hawaiian flower shirts and whatnot is nonsense. And a revolution's just installing another government anyways. There's a difference between revolution and insurgency and all that.
Well, that's just it, like it's the idea that we're all going to dress up in Hawaiian shirts and take on the military. That's more utopian than even like the idea of voting, right? Even the idea that voting, that we could vote us into a state of liberty, isn't as utopian as the idea that we can take out like all of the militaries in the world. Yeah, I just think it's ineffective, and I honestly think it's probably counterproductive. It gives the state an excuse for more surveillance and more security measures and more regulations and limitations on individual liberty. So yeah, that's why I just always have promoted counter economics.
It's by far the best way to go if you want to survive anything that's coming at you. Just be fluent in all this stuff and practice all this stuff. I think the state's definitely scared of any of these sort of violent movements, though, I think the evidence in that is like the guys in Minnesota who were accused of selling weapons to Hamas, and then Hamas came out and said, no, we would never work with these guys. But the sting operations they're putting forward and whatnot. I had a guy a while back on the show, Christopher Ledbetter, who I think is still in jail, just for getting guys together and doing gun training and stuff like that. Not doing anything illegal, but he was a former Marine, turned voluntarist, and they ended up getting him on explosive charges because they found fireworks in his house. They're going for it, but they're also not, like you said, utilizing both sides of this. He could have been a little more secretive about it, but he was all about putting it out in the open as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really try to encourage of people is to use all the tools that we have, use the encryption and use Signal and stuff like that, because otherwise you will get into trouble. And like the proof is in the pudding. Look at how the state treated Ross Ulbricht, right? Look at what they've done to Cody Wilson, and compare that with the treatment that Satoshi Nakamoto got. Satoshi Nakamoto was able to remain anonymous. We don't even know who he is. And he's probably done as much damage to the state as those two individuals have. But yet Ross has got double life plus 40, and they've tried to ruin Cody's life. So there really is a lot of value to Agora staying anonymous. And I really try to encourage that as much as possible. It's a little bit more difficult for like guys like us who are trying to be like content creators and promote the ideology, because we have to sort of have a public face. Like the feds know what my face looks like. They know what your face looks like. We're not hiding that. But so we've Satoshi's already one step ahead of us, but that's all right, because I'm not trying to keep pace with Nakamoto.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is difficult, but like you said, if you want to get it out there, you got to be out there at some point. But like you said, never ever promoting doing anything illegal. These are just thought exercises, fully philosophical, right? Yeah,
exactly.
They're good thought exercises to have, but yeah, that's something too that I'm woefully ignorant on is Cody's situation. If you want to tell people exactly what's going on with that, and that was 3D printed gun files, right? Code is free speech.
Yeah. So I'm not like 100% familiar with like where his case is now, but to the heroic aspect of that, I think that he did was 3D printers had been around for a while. The only reason why we never had a 3D printed gun was because no one could design a 3D printed spring, and that's exactly what he did. He created these little spirals out of plastic that worked as a spring that you could use as trigger springs, and that's what allowed him to create the Liberator. Eventually they lured him into like some bullshit, like, I guess like he slept with a 17-year-old or something like that, or the state had some, quasi 18-year-old try to like seduce him. I'm not really sure what exactly happened, but I do know that he was set up, obviously. He even said about a week before they tried to take him down, he said something to the effect of like, they're going to come after me. And when they do, he goes, whatever charge they come up with, he goes, I just want everybody out there to know it's bullshit ahead of time. And then a week later, they drop this, bomb on him. So he's sort of been much more quieter since that happened. I'm not really sure where his case is today, but that's like a sort of general gist of where he's at.
Right. And it seems like they always follow those same patterns. If they can't find any dirt on somebody, they find a way to make dirt on somebody, whether it's legitimate or not. And it's funny because that goes from the top, like in their circles, down to here, with the whole Epstein thing and whatnot, luring people in to do horrible things to other people and whatnot, so that they always have something on them, which is another, great reminder of why you should remain anonymous. But yeah, that's a hard one to protect against when they're just going to protect against when they're just going to make shit up about you.
And also, like, look at Julian Assange. It's another good example, right? Like they brought up some bullshit rape accusation and threw him in jail. Then when it finally came to light that the rape accusations were all bullshit, they still kept him in jail. Mm-hmm. So it has nothing to do with all of these nonsensical charges that they bring up. It's all about vengeance, right? Like, obviously, it's about revenge. When you give Ross Ulbricht double life plus 40, it has nothing to do. That's obviously not proportional to building a website. Mm-hmm. That's not a proportional punishment. So obviously, there's a bit of vengeance tacked in on that sentence, and that's the nature of the beast that we're dealing with, unfortunately.
Right, and isn't their smear campaign with Ross was something about hitmen? Like, didn't he? They say he tried to hire a hitman from his own website to kill somebody that he knew. I don't remember the details, but it's just like, really? That's
there was like some I guess there was like a story about there was like a hacker who was demanding payment from Ross, and he wasn't going to let the Silk Road out of his grips until he got X amount of money. And the FBI story was that Ross hired a hitman, but it ended up being all bullshit. He was never charged on any of it. But yet they still included those charges, which weren't proven. He wasn't convicted on, but yet they still included those charges when it came time for the domestic terrorist federal judge, Catherine B. Forrest, to sentence him. she still included that nonsense, even though, like I said, he was never convicted on it.
Right.
That's why federal judges are, the parasites of the most grandest form.
Yeah, absolutely awful. And that was actually something that came up when I had Christopher Ledbetter, the guy that got arrested on the trumped up explosive charges, on the phone or on the show. It's, if you surrender, you're completely at their mercy. But I know that's a judgment you have to make at that point in time, because, you never know if you're going to get 2 life sentences or die fighting, or what's going to happen if you get arrested, depending on what you're doing. It's rough, and it's just another reason for community building.
Yeah, one of the questions I get asked a lot is like, well, how can I get involved in counter economics in like a risk-free way? And the first thing I tell people is there's no such thing as risk-free counter economics, right? You can't take, as long as there's a state engaging in black and gray markets, is going to be risky. It's just a matter of how much risk can you take. And, I think Konkin describes it really well in New Libertarian Manifesto, where he says you have to account for the risk in your cost, build that into your price. So if you're, I don't know, let's say, let's say tomorrow bagels are illegal and you want to sell a bagel, right? You have to account for the idea of, well, I'm facing X amount of punishment. If I sell a bagel, I need to tack that onto my price. So, risk is different, and there are different counter economic activities that all bear a different degree of risk, right? So selling heroin is obviously much more risky than, selling raw milk, although, they have ruined people's lives for that as well. So, like I said, you can't remove risk entirely.
Right. In anything, really. And that it's a funny thing when people who aren't anarchists or of any form, any fashion, are interested and want to be in it risk-free. It's like, well, even living in compliance with the state is not risk-free. You're committing a crime every day just by the number of laws that there are. You can't avoid that, or they're going to make up new shit to get you, like you said, making something illegal tomorrow as benign as a bagel, or like we're looking at now. You can't even list all the ways that you can get in trouble for breaking these nebulous rules that surround the whole COVID thing.
Yeah, no, that's a great point that you make too. And if you think about it, like, it's really true, because I can take the risk of putting my money into cryptocurrency and taking the risk of maybe the tax man is going to find out that I have X amount of, Satoshis stashed somewhere, or I can take the risk of keeping my money in fiat currency. And then I know it's a guaranteed thing that the bankers are going to use my money to propagate a famine in Yemen that's going to result in the death of children. Mm-hmm. That's risky, right? That's like, I'm not as concerned about the IRS man as I am about paying for the death of a child. Like, that's the risk in my mind,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think tax avoidance on just about any level is probably one of the least risky things that you can do, just based on the number of people they have available to come after you, to actually look into you, and who they even bother looking into, based on how much money you're bringing in and putting out and moving and stuff like that. There's much riskier things to do, and it's really, I think, probably the most in line with the spirit of agorism as far as starving the state and keeping the interactions away from it. That's, my favorite one to talk about with people who are interested. It's a really hard sell, because they're really scared of that, because every once in a while they publicize something about a celebrity or whoever avoiding taxes and getting thrown in jail or whatever, and people are like, well, we're not going to the white collar jail that Martha Stewart went to. I think what was it, Office Space? We're going to federal fuck you in the ass prison, something like that.
Right. And, a great resource for people who are interested in minimizing their tax burden would be to read Irwin Schiff. Check out all of the books and watch as many lectures and videos of Irwin Schiff as you possibly can. One of the things he said that really sort of influenced me was when he said that if we can get tax compliance below, and like he had a figure, I think it was like 70 something percent, then like the state wouldn't be able to afford their bills and they would just all collapse. Mm-hmm. Obviously now, the tax collection is peanuts to what they spend, because most of their money comes from inflation. So it's all different now, which is just more of a reason to use, cryptocurrency and precious metals. But I think, it's important not to play that game if you can.
Right. Yeah. And, if they're not even, like you said, it's all coming from somewhere else, from inflation, from money printer go burr. And it's like, That's the fallacy that's out there from people who want you to pay their taxes. You got to pay in so that everybody can have this or that and whatever. And it's just like, no, just don't. You're not. Look at the people who are working hard and getting taxes taken out. They have less in a lot of cases than people who aren't because they're getting those handouts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to break my own rule now about being anonymous, but I haven't paid federal taxes in about 5 or 6 years. When I was at that pork fest that we were speaking about earlier, I was listening to like a discussion or maybe it was like a speech or a panel discussion that Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live was on. And he was like, yeah, I haven't paid federal taxes in 10 years. And I'm like, well, if this guy hasn't been extorted in 10 years, what the hell is wrong with me? What am I doing? Voluntarily giving these idiots my money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the end of it. That was the last day I decided to be paying federal taxes. Although I was talking to Jack Spirko from the Survival Podcast, and he was telling me that I guess he's got some convoluted way where like you pay your taxes, but like you claim, I forget, I don't know. He claims like all of his like healthcare stuff, and I know he ends up getting more money back than he puts in. I have to talk to him more to figure it out. But that's another thing too. If you can manipulate the tax code to your benefit, by all means, you know what I mean? Any way you can deny revenue to these bastards, do it.
Yeah.
Do it, in my mind. Don't do anything illegal because I don't want to go to jail, but whatever you can do.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And that's interesting. I hope you guys do an episode on that or something. Because that would be very interesting to hear. I'm always interested in that. And that's a great bridge to the people who say they don't want any risk when getting into it. It's like, yeah, get them to dip their toes in the water and they're going to like it so much. Eventually they'll dive in. Yeah. And it's also, I always say it's my most controversial opinion when it comes to agorism or anarchy, but I think you should take as much from the state as you can without giving back. Like there's this whole argument of like, oh, should I take the stimulus checks and whatnot, and if I'm losing my job, if I can't exist fully in the gray and black markets, and I have a white market job, and now I got to go on unemployment, and people are saying, "Well, it's not anarchist. Don't do it." It's, fuck them. Do it. Just don't give any back.
I agree with you 100%. And I actually used to fall on the other side of that. I used to think that wasn't the case. And then I spoke with Walter Block. He wrote a book called Space Capitalism, where he speaks about Elon Musk being like a welfare queen. And I said something to him oh, I forget how the conversation went, but the idea that what he pointed out to me was that look at all of us professors like Walter Block and Bob Murphy. All these guys are drawing a salary from public institutions, but you know what? All that money they're donating it to the Mises Institute, or they're using it to like write books about Austrian economics, and they're taking money from the state and bringing it into the voluntary markets. And I think that's a super powerful thing. Another good example would be like Per Byland, who's a great agorist economist at Oklahoma State. He, I think like his students are assigned to buy his books that he writes on Austrian economics, right? That's the signed book for the class. So all the money from the public, from the taxation is going to the agorist, counter-economist. And I think that is just brilliant as far as I'm concerned. So I'm with you 1,000% on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is brilliant. That's a great way for people, who aren't facing, as hard of times as losing your job or having to wait for the stimulus to do it. But I've been bringing it up. I want to keep bringing it up. Is like, don't feel shame for taking that if you need to take that. Anybody who's listening, just fucking do it. Stay alive. Buy bullets. They're expensive right now.
Just don't give it back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't give it back.
Yeah. And also, I think that it has a lot to do with like the whole rollout of the digital dollar, as I think what they're going to try to do with that is to sort of restrict. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to target like the inflation, right? All of this monetary stimulus, they can't have you go out and buy gold or silver or guns or real estate. They need you to go out and consume and spend, and they need to keep the velocity of money up to keep their Ponzi scheme alive. So I think with this whole USD digital dollar, I think what they're going to try to do is, you'll get a notification on your phone that says, hey, you've received X amount of dollars from Uncle Sam, but you can't spend it at the gun store. You can't spend it on precious metals. You can't spend it at, for cryptocurrency. You've got to go to Walmart or Target or the movie theater or something like that. So it all really ties in with the whole, in my mind, it all ties in with the Federal Reserve's Ponzi scheme.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I can't remember. I've seen multiple people say it, but if they really want to stimulate the economy, they should be giving these out in gift card form. So, like you said, they can't do it. This is what people are saying. And if they use that digital dollar, well, it's easier than a gift card because they can just control it completely. And of course they would want you to go to the stores that they've propped up while they kill off all the mom and pops and small businesses and stuff like that. That's another scary thing too, because these stores like Walmart, these super corporations, they don't take crypto necessarily or anything other than government approved stuff, and it all goes right back into that system. Whereas a lot of the mom and pop places, mechanics, all this kind of stuff, you get a discount for using cash, and there's a reason for that. There's a very good reason for that, because they don't have to report it.
Absolutely. That's why one of the things I encourage people to do is to go to that, instead of bring your car to the dealership when it breaks down, go to that shade tree mechanic, go to that neighborhood mechanic guy, because chances are he's going to, like you say, he's going to be all cash, and there's a reason why. If that taco truck on the corner that you drive past every day, stop there and get lunch there rather than, some franchise, because chances are he's probably hiding some cash in that business. So anything you could do like that, any sort of any participation in the underground economy, I think helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why it brought this image into my head. I was just thinking about all the anarchist hustles and agorist hustles that we see in kind of our anarchist and agorist community. A lot of them kind of stay within the community. I rebranded this podcast from Enemy of the State, Stank Podstash, to try to kind of break out of that. But it seems really hard for people to bust out to people who don't know what agorism is and things like that with these hustles that they have. It sounds like you've probably had some success with that with 3dprintergoburr.com and whatnot, but do you have any advice for people on busting out into that white market, drawing people in?
Yeah, so I think one of the keys to reaching a more a broader audience, I think, is to have I don't want to say broader content, because it's important to maintain purity of principle, but it's important to reach more people. And I the way that I do that is through memes, right? I steal and make memes, and I share as many memes as possible throughout the course of a day, because the more people that see that, the more people that get drawn in, even if maybe they don't even have to be a libertarian, but maybe they're a Democrat and they see me, shitting on Trump or something. That's going to make them pay attention to my page, next time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can get those wheels turning. It doesn't work all the time. It might not even work most of the time. But even if there's such a handful of people who we can turn, that's a huge difference we can make,
Yeah. Yeah, I think memes are really important. I think we were probably in the same, I don't know, I think we both talked in the meme section on that Stateless Docs documentary as well. That was a really good section. But yeah, memes, and I think word of mouth and stuff that's what keeps podcasts going. That's what helps small producers of whatever goods expand further. So yeah, you always got to tell your friends about your friend's hustle, about your friend's content, all that stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I really think is if you to the greatest degree possible, we should all try to keep our money within the counter economy. That's why every now and then I'll throw up a post on Twitter or something that's hey, whatever your hustle is, just drop a link in the comments below so we can all check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because why give money to the state when you can give it to a fellow agorist? It doesn't make any sense,
Right. And one question I've had and that people have asked me that I'm not really good at answering, and I haven't gotten a great answer either, is how to sell your cryptocurrency without selling through Coinbase or something like that. I know there's groups that you can find. I think Telegram's a pretty good place for that, but that's about the extent of my knowledge on that.
So I think there's some great resources that you can do this with. I really like the peer-to-peer exchanges. Some good examples would be local.bitcoin.com, local CoinSwap, or local cryptos. They all allow you to use this escrow service, so you can buy and sell. You can do both in a peer-to-peer way. So there's no third parties it's all non-custodial. And like I said, it is a little bit riskier because there's a lot of scammers on there, because people will, a lot of identity thieves will run, they'll put together a phishing scam, and they'll somehow gain access to your bank account. But now they can't go out and spend your money on everything that they want, because the bank will trace those transactions back to them. So what they do is once they have access to your bank account, they try to buy as much cryptocurrency as possible and send it to their own non-custodial wallet. So you have to watch out for that. But if you stick to the escrow system, you'll be all right. I've used it many of times. I still use it every now and then, and I think it's a great way to buy and sell crypto in a non KYC fashion. There's also like a lot of creative ways to do it. There was a company called Lamium that allowed you to like users of cryptocurrency could post their utility bills, right? Let's say I had a cable bill for $100. I could post my bill along with $100 in cryptocurrency. You could come along and take $100 in fiat and pay my utility bill for me and collect that $100 in crypto. So it was a great way for cryptocurrency users to get their bills paid, and also a great way for people to acquire crypto in a non-KYC fashion. But I think Lamium sort of faded out. I think it was like only for Dash and it didn't get a lot of action. One of the things that at Agoristics that we've been talking about, or kicking around the idea, is trying to bring that back for more geared towards Bitcoin Cash. So we'll see what happens, though.
That'd be awesome. That's a fantastic idea. I'm surprised. I guess if they're only focused on one crypto, if you could have an exchange where you could pay it in anything, that'd be really great. I bet that'd be hard to do, but at least focus on it.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea.
Right.
Because that's exactly what it comes down to. When every time I've asked somebody on the show or somewhere else about living completely off of crypto, most people, it's like it's not possible, because you got to go exchange it for dollars every once in a while to go through this or that, and that I think is a much better avenue of doing that than selling it for $100 to pay your bill, whatever. It's great. Yeah, fuck, I never would have even thought of that. Interesting.
Yeah, I think another good way to like if people don't mind going through KYC, I'm not a fan of KYC, but if they don't mind it, you can get like a crypto debit card, which makes for all intents and purposes, it really normalizes the spending experience. But I know Joel Valenzuela, he won't go that route, and he still lives 100% off crypto. I have like a BitPay card. I try to use direct crypto payments whenever possible. Purse.io is a good resource for that, and there's a couple other sites out there like Open Bazaar and stuff that people can check out that really help that process out. Bitrefill is another one. So there's a lot of tools out there. You just have to do your homework.
Yeah. Have you had any luck with any of the subscription services similar to Patreon that use crypto? Because I can't remember which one I was trying for a while, but people just aren't as interested in that. And then also a friend who sponsors the show through Voluntary Apothecary, like they were only selling their beard care products and whatnot through crypto, and then had a stack of orders waiting through PayPal because people just don't want to go through, buying Bitcoin or whatever and buying it through that. It seems like a hard sell for a lot of people.
You mean like just getting them into crypto initially, or you mean like getting merchants to accept it?
Merchants accepting it already is from what I've seen, are having trouble getting other people to use crypto to buy their products, at least in the case of Voluntary Apothecary. Like people just want to pay with PayPal. Or then like I have a Patreon. I'm pretty sure you have a Patreon, and that's how we support a lot of our stuff. And I had a crypto version of Patreon that no one was interested in. Yeah.
Well, there was Bitbacker.
That's the one.
Which I signed up for. I don't think I got any support or any donations at all from Bitbacker, but I think they're out of business now if I understand correctly. But in terms of like getting people to use crypto, I think the key is to use it for what it was created for, right? And that's to avoid KYC regulations. Like the whole point, if you read the white paper, like the whole first page is about how a peer-to-peer cash can get around this whole KYC nonsense. So like there's really no purpose. There's no reason. I mean, let's put it like this: there's no reason that you wouldn't want to use a KYC platform to buy milk. But maybe if you're buying drugs or a gun, then you don't want to use a KYC platform. So it really depends on what the purchase is for. But with that being said, I still think even if you're buying milk, you should be using cryptocurrency, because then you're not paying the inflation tax, and that's how you avoid paying for the wars and the welfare and stuff like that. So it's really just a matter of, whatever people prefer and whatever they prefer to use. If I have fiat, I try to convert it as often as possible. Like I'll just make it right into Bitcoin Cash as soon as I get it, unless I have like an expense coming up tomorrow or something like that. So
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to get people into it. I think Float, I think they do their creator stuff with some sort of crypto. I'm not sure which. I still haven't jumped on
yeah,
there yet.
I
I'm
think
sorry, Float. I'll get there. I promise.
honestly, one of the other problems I think with getting people into using crypto is like, especially with Bitcoin right now is sort of the main brand of cryptocurrency, and like the transaction fees are on-chain transaction fees are like super high,
Mm-hmm.
and transactions aren't instant. You have to wait a while, so you have to pay a lot of money and wait a while. Imagine like you're in a retail setting, like you're at Target or something like that. You're waiting online to pay, and you go to scan your QR code, and then you say to the cashier, "Oh, just wait about an hour," that transaction is going to cost you about $10 to go through. And you turn around to all the people waiting online behind you, and you're like, "Hey guys, just wait about an hour for this transaction to confirm." It's not an efficient medium of exchange, so people aren't encouraged to use it. That's why I really try to push people into Bitcoin Cash, because it's cheap and it's basically instant, and it's just a much more efficient medium of exchange. So that's why I prefer that. That's why I don't really promote Bitcoin as often as I used to, like
Mm-hmm.
pre 2017.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and just finding a way to get into it, I think, will really help. If you're interested in any of this and you're not into it, will really help you. If you can dip your toes in, you'll find that you might like it, because it took me a while to get into it. I had an opportunity way back when to buy Bitcoin, and I've always kicked myself for not doing it. But I was interested in like Chainlink and some of that stuff, and Ethereum, Monero, all that. And I found the best way, if you have enough money to gamble with, it's starting out, it doesn't hurt to toss it in there and see what happens. And it paid off. Or if you can find a way to get paid for your hustles in there, anything like that, a way that you're not risking it as much to get in there, try it out, and you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and not, even if like I'm sure you have a lot of listeners who are probably more advanced in the crypto space. So for those listeners, even after you've already, you're well acquainted with cryptocurrency, now it's time to go out and try to get merchants in your local area. Try to get them to accept it, right? Go to that diner and tell them, "Hey, man, I'll be here every day. I'll get lunch from you, twice a week if I can pay you in, whatever cryptocurrency." Because that's how we sort of then, other people see, "Oh, look, my favorite store, now they accept crypto. Oh, wait, and now I don't have to pay the inflation tax, and I can buy all my regular stuff there." That's how we're going to get people, into mass adoption. The other thing, on this point is like, Bitcoin was created to get around KYC as a peer-to-peer cash, and Ross Ulbricht showed us how to use that with the Silk Road. He showed us the power of having a peer-to-peer currency. I think that as the state becomes more oppressive, as they become more restrictive, the need for a peer-to-peer currency is going to grow and grow and grow. Right now, like, you only need a peer-to-peer currency for things like we said, drugs, guns, illicit stuff. But as more things fall under that umbrella of prohibition, then there's going to be a greater need for cryptocurrency. And that's how we sort of get to mass adoption, because that utility will, like, going back to like regression theorem and economic theory, like gold was wanted back in the day by everyone for its for its decorative value. And like, because it was wanted universally for decorative value, then all of a sudden it was able to be used as a money. And I think the same thing is going to be true with Bitcoin. Eventually it'll be wanted by everyone for its peer-to-peer value, until finally it can be adopted as money.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I see it playing out, at least.
No, absolutely. And one thing I'm surprised as far as adoption of cryptocurrencies is how so many cannabis businesses have not adopted it. I'm sure that some have, but and maybe this, when they're trying to federally decriminalize it, that might ruin it a bit if it lets these businesses interact with banks more. But I've always wondered why there's not a Bitcoin or whatever ATM inside the stores. And they say, all right, well, you can go pull out $20 to buy whatever you're buying and pay a $4 fee, or you can pay $1 fee if you buy this crypto and use it.
Yeah, or even like the black market pot dealers, right? Like up in Jersey, like my weed guy, like he didn't accept Bitcoin. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why not? Like, why wouldn't you accept Bitcoin? You know what I mean? Like now you have to. I'm giving you dollars. Now you have to put this into a bank account, or you got to account for it somehow. If I pay you in crypto, you don't have to do that. But I still think we're like very early. Like we're
Mm.
still in the infancy stages of all of this. So I
Right.
think eventually everybody will get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fucking A, man. We're right about up to the end of the recording. That was fucking excellent. Why don't you tell everybody where you can find all your stuff again, and then we'll jump into that quick Patreon video.
Dude, that's it. You're gonna kick me out already? Come on, man.
I got
I'm
ads,
just kidding.
but we'll bring you
I'm
back
just
for the
kidding, man.
Patreon video.
We've got sponsors. We got to pay the bills. No, I'm on Twitter at Sally Mayweather. I'm on Minds, MeWe, Facebook. I've got a Facebook page that's always getting censored, so I really don't even post there anymore. It's Print Guns, Not Money. SalTheAgoras.com is my personal site. 3D Printer Go Burr for 3D printers, and newlibertarian.io for if you prefer like written content and blogging. So that's that's my story.
Excellent, man. That was an awesome conversation. We'll do a little bit more, like I said, in the Patreon video, patreon.com/Beyond the Ballot. And as usual, you can find Beyond the Ballot at Beyond Ballot Pod pretty much everywhere. And I'm at Non-Voting Nick pretty much everywhere. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Sal, thanks for coming on. That was fucking awesome. And we'll catch you all next time. Beyond the Ballot is sponsored by Project Sparta. Go to projectspartacoaching.com now to learn more and get on your path to health.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?